doesn't matter to, like, why should anybody watch this? Like, why not just go with the, hey, decide for Christ, you're good. You know, does
one way or the other just gets to the finish line?
Yeah, one way or the other. Like, pragmatically, you know, does this understanding of salvation do anything, or is it just kind of nerds,
actually,
you know, pushing the chairs around?
Can I ask you in this form? How does this actually not set up a victimhood mentality? I guess I just wasn't meant to be saved. I guess God didn't set me apart. I guess God didn't choose me. That's why I'm not responding. You see, it creates a how do I
think that's a selfish and gross way to look at it, because you're putting the focus on yourself.
But they're not a believer,
victim mentality. So it takes the grace of God to realize that, hey, salvation is not about it's not about you.
Yep.
Right.
It's about Christ's finished work, done for your sake, for your behalf. So that's the way I look at it. It's taking the focus off yourself. That's why humility matters a lot. When you think about salvation, that humility, being humbled, be truly having that contrition followed by accompanied by humility, realizing that, yeah, it's not about you. The focus is not about you. So that's kind of a helpful way to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and if that person is still so focused on themselves, then they obviously haven't surrendered, or they haven't understood what the gospel is. They haven't understood their sin in it to repent.
Yeah, that our salvation is beyond our own reach. That we never are good enough for God. It's our works. It removes the anxiety of our own holiness. Like, we want to pursue sanctification. We want to respond in obedience. We want to confess our sin, all of that. But the anxiousness of, oh, am I good enough? Am I good enough? That's wiped away at the cross.
Well, and he's not saying, are you good enough? But like, well, God didn't choose me. Yeah. It's like, well, that's outside of your control. If, you know, if God didn't choose you, like, he didn't choose you, but you're not going to be sitting here worrying about it. I think if your heart's hardened, you're like, well, screw God, and you're moving on.
Why would you even spend time thinking about it? I was
texting with somebody just a couple of weeks ago, a different somebody, and they're kind of like, well, how come God's like damning me because I didn't sin? I wasn't the original one who in the garden. I said, well, but you're rebelling against God. And it was like, well, but I'm how can you rebel against something you don't even think exists? And I'm like, well, just by the very fact you're not choosing to follow him. And it was just like silence. You know. But it's like their heart is so hardened, like they're not worrying about like whether they're elect or not.
Exactly.
But I think if you've been given that soft heart towards salvation and you desire God, because you wouldn't have a desire for God unless he'd given it to you, then I think that person has been given, I would think, somewhat of a soft heart. And who knows, maybe they harden it along the way, or maybe it was hard all along. It would be hard all along, but I guess the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see. Like, from our human perspective, like we can't know whether someone's saved. We just, and this is an important point, I think, is that we ourselves are not sitting in judgment of other people and like, this person's saved, that person's not saved. Kind of like what you were talking about with the Calvinist church. But we can tell by someone's fruits. But we do want to withhold that judgment in the beginning, because we're waiting to see if that develops. We're looking at kind of the parable of the seeds. You know, the gospel falls in all these places. We wait to see where it grows. Did it fall on hard soil? Did it fall on soft soil? Did it fall amongst the weeds? Like, we'll see, you know?
Yeah.
And if someone's saying like, well, I don't know if I'm saved or not, well, it's like, well, we'll see like whether it takes root or not.